Now, ooh. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started this evening. Thank you all for braving the weather and bringing your blankets and jackets. My name is Ryan Henningsen. I'll be moderating this evening, and a couple housekeeping notes before we get started. If any of the candidates have shown up and didn't let us know you're here, please do so at our check-in table up front. Out of courtesy to the candidates that will be up here speaking with us, please make sure you turn your cell phones off or on silent so we don't have any interruptions. Restrooms are located right over here to my left, and they are open if you need them. We will be accepting questions from all of you in attendance. We have a question table up front here, and I think Sherry, Louie, you're going to be running around grabbing questions with pencils and paper, so just wave your hand and we'll come around and find you, and they'll bring those up. If you submit questions, please make it regarding the issues and not individuals. All questions will come through us, and then they'll pass them up to me. I do want to thank our sponsors for the event this evening: Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce and the Legislative Action Committee, Franklin County Farm Bureau Association, and AT&T. Rylan is going to be filming and streaming this live on Facebook, so thank you for doing that. And then the City of Ottawa will post this on the Government Access channel so those at home can watch and view as well. So let's get started with Roger Marshall's here to join us. And Roger, what I'm going to have you do is up and introduce yourself, take a couple minutes to just make an opening statement, and then I'll ask you a couple questions too.
All right, good evening, Ottawa, Franklin County. It's great to be back here, and I'm going to have to pull this off maybe. There we go, we got it. You know, we all have a story to share, and I think it's important you know my story and my values and what's important to me. But my name's Roger Marshall. I'm running to be your next United States Senator. I was born a fifth-generation farm kid in Butler County, Kansas. That's El Dorado. If you don't know where Butler County is, reminds me very much of Ottawa and Franklin County. So I was a fifth-generation farm kid. My dad became the chief of police there for 25 years. I later became a first-generation college student, and my American dream was to become a doctor. My wife and I got married about 2 weeks before medical school 37 years ago. And after medical school and residency and Army Reserve for 7 years, we moved to Great Bend, Kansas. Now, Great Bend is right in the center of the state on the Great Bend of the Arkansas River. There in Great Bend, we delivered over 5,000 babies. We raised 4 children of our own. And now we have 2 grandsons and 1 on the way. I've lived that American dream, and I want to make sure that our kids have the same shot at the American dream that I've had. I'm running to keep your families healthy, safe, and secure. I'm running to bring jobs back to Kansas, and I'm running to protect Kansas values Values like confirming Supreme Court justices like Amy Coney Barrett, protecting our freedoms of speech and religion, protecting the sanctity of life. I'm running to make sure that we have secure borders, a strong military, and a fully funded police. I'm honored to be here today and happy to take a couple questions if we have time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roger. It's going to be a challenge.
We need to get further apart or closer together?
I'm not sure.
There's a sweet spot right here.
There we go. That works. So I'm trying to, let me ask you this question first, and then I'll formulate the question that was submitted. I know the Senate's going to be voting on a new $500 billion stimulus package tomorrow. What is your position on our need for a stimulus package, and what might that look like in your opinion?
Right, so I do think we could use a little more help, but we need to limit how much money we're going to borrow from our grandchildren. That I think of the trillions of dollars we've already done with stimulus, half of that's not hit Main Street yet, so I'm always for taking a breath and seeing where that all ends. I do think we need some help. Liability protection is the #1 thing that I hear from employees, as well as another bite of the apple, the Paycheck Protection Program. The Paycheck Protection Program saved over 500,000 Kansas jobs, and so I think it's a good program. We could use some more money for it as well. We need to do something for the unemployment insurance benefit, but not as rich as it was before. We need to have some funding to keep our kids in school, whatever that takes, to keep them safely in school, and some more money for the vaccine development, getting the vaccines out, the new therapeutics, more testing, that type of thing. Already across the state of Kansas, unemployment rate is dropping to 3 to 4% in many counties. So our economy is running. It's getting back up and going. We need to be careful how much money we're going to borrow from our grandchildren.
So if you represent Kansas as a senator, do you plan on standing with your party and Trump's agenda and initiatives? Or do you see opportunities to maybe reach across the line and find ways to progress with the Democrats on the other side?
Yeah, so #1 is I'm always going to vote for Kansas. I'm always going to keep what Kansans want done, what I think is best for Kansas, even ahead of parties. That's always been my priority for myself. And I'm proud of the bipartisan bills that we've already done, though. Think about the Farm Bill. The bipartisan Farm Bill has been accomplished in good shape. That we've done bipartisan trade agreements, a USMCA trade agreement. That we fully funded our military. That we're taking care of our veterans better. So I've been long working on bipartisan relationships. At the same time, I've supported the president. That the president's policies are working. Pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy of our lifetime by keeping our taxes down, by rolling back the regulations. Joe Biden and my opponent, they promised to raise your taxes and increase regulations. So I'm always going to support Kansas.
Roger, that's most of the questions we have submitted, so why don't you just take a couple minutes and tell us why we should vote for you.
Well, look, I think I told you already that I'm going to run to keep your family safe, healthy, and secure. I'm going to run to bring jobs back to Kansas. I'm going to run to protect Kansas values. That's what's important to me. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight, getting out to vote. I think that's what it's down to now. If Republicans, if conservatives, if Kansas moderates get out and vote, we're going to win this election, and we're going to keep Kansas great. I'm honored to be here tonight, and everybody have a great evening. God bless.
Thank you so much for being here and joining us in Ottawa this evening. Next up, I would like to have Mike Bruner and Karen Tyson join us. thank you too for joining us this evening. What I'd like to do is we'll give you each 2 minutes to make an opening statement, and then we have some questions that we'll ask the two of you. So, Ms. Tyson, how about you start for us this evening?
Well, good evening. It's great to see you guys here. I'm glad that some of you could make it, and for those joining us online, I'm Karen Tyson. I represent the 12th Senate District. For those of you that don't know, it is Southern Miami County, Lynn, Northern Bourbon, Franklin, Allen, Anderson. My husband, my rock of 31 years, Tim's here with me tonight. We own and operate Tyson Ranch. I'm a software engineer by trade. That's kind of what got me interested in government. I was on some IT projects. Most notably, I worked for NASA, and it just showed me that we could do things so much better. We have so much government waste. So that's what sparked an interest for me, is solving problems and finding solutions. I've got a math degree from K-State, a computer science degree from K-State. My master's is from KU in engineering management. I'm project management certified. I apply common sense, real experience to find solutions for our state. You guys know that I work very diligently for the taxpayer. I work for limited government, individual freedom, traditional values, and economic development. We still have problems facing us, especially with COVID. This has amplified some of the situations and problems that we're facing as a state. I look forward to your questions, working on those solutions together, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
I am Mike Bruner. I am the Democratic candidate for Senate 12. I'm a retired history teacher from Humboldt, and as a teacher, naturally, I'm interested in education, and I do believe in making government more responsive to the people and to do what we can to improve the quality of life and make rural Kansas a place where our children will want to stay, or maybe after they go to school, come back. And so rural revitalization is very important to me. I thought maybe my background in teaching, the political work I've done, working for pro-education candidates, was maybe the strongest thing in my background. But then I realized it was actually the 25, 30 years that I was head negotiator for our local teachers union. And I learned the value of people working out solutions to problems and understanding that in negotiations, and that applies to government negotiations, the other side always has a few good ideas. You can't always dismiss them. And you also, even if they don't, you have to give them some opportunity to work with you. And that bargaining and negotiating in good faith and coming up with solutions that where no one gets everything they want, but everyone comes away feeling that they have done something. And what was really interesting about that situation was that the school board and the teachers both cared about pretty much the same things. They cared about the kids, they cared about the quality of education, and of course they had some issues they differed on. And I want to bring that kind of spirit of cooperation, civility, and cooperation to Kansas politics, because I think we've kind of gone the other direction. Thank you.
Mike, I'll let you answer this first question, and Richard, we'll go 2 minutes each on this question. What do you believe are the biggest priorities going into 2021, if elected?
Well, right now, obviously, the COVID situation. If we had a pack of wolves scouring the state and they had killed 800 Kansans, we wouldn't worry about what the percentages was. We'd just be worrying about how we were going to deal with it. and I do support a very science-based, practical approach to that. I do have some background in strategic planning and project management, and I very much support a science-based approach to that. I'm very concerned about what might happen if the federal government does not come up with a stimulus package that helps us fill in our gap with revenue shortfall. And I think that's going to make some hard choices. I think that's probably not going to happen. I think that we will see that aid come. But if it doesn't, that's going to be a great challenge. But mostly, I just want to see that we can to keep our schools as good as we can make them. We have good schools in Kansas. I want to support our highway system and our roads. I'm a very big supporter of the Eisenhower Legacy Project. I am concerned about access to medical care in our rural counties, and I am a big supporter of Medicaid expansion, which will bring jobs and economic investment to Franklin County, as well as ensuring a few hundred more of your citizens and improving basically the quality of life. And so those are some of the things that I'm very deeply concerned about, and also just bring a little bit more positive tone to our political discourse. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tyson, same question. You need me to repeat that?
Thank you. We have many things facing us this session. It's going to be a very difficult year. The economy is going to be one of the most important ones. We've also got access to medical care is an issue. Education is always an issue for the state. The economy tends to impact everyone. I know as a legislator, I have not supported these bloated budgets. We've got to get our out-of-control spending reined in. It is just deplorable that we have people that are literally being taxed out of their homes. They're trying to decide, do they buy food, do they pay for their medicine, or do they pay for their property tax? And I've worked very diligently, been successful at working with others throughout the state on finding solutions. In fact, we've worked on legislation we've passed in the Senate that would promote transparency in property tax. We also had legislation in the Senate that would have frozen senior citizens and military disabled veterans property tax for low-income people. And that legislation came from the opposite party. I promoted it as the tax chair and will continue to work with others. You know, I talked about medicine. We've heard Medicaid expansion. The state, the issue, the bill that's been proposed before us, we can't afford that. Nobody's stepping up with a Kansas solution, and that's what we need. We need something that is specific to Kansans and that we can afford. We need to have cut the middleman out of the medicine, pharmaceuticals. That would save us billions of dollars. Education, I've been working diligently. Actually, this past week, I've talked to the regions, K through 12. In fact, I was in a parade this weekend, and one of the teachers was the MC, and she yelled, "There goes a senator that is friendly to education and teachers." I was very happy that she did that. It was nice of her. But we need to understand right now what is going on in the classrooms, this partial in, partial out. It's not working. So we need real solutions, not just complain about problems.
Ms. Tyson, I'll have you start this next question, and we'll go 1 minute. So you both touched on the Medicaid expansion, and 1 minute, why, can you explain why you do or why you do not support Medicaid expansion?
The proposed expansion, Medicaid expansion bill that we've seen is extremely expensive. And with Kansans right now facing financial difficulties that they haven't seen before in their lifetime, we cannot afford to be increasing what the state is asking taxpayers. In fact, we have to dig in and find efficiencies with the state. I will work diligently. We did this in 2008 and 2009. The governor dug in and used examples like unnecessary travel, any projects for equipment and stuff that could be delayed. We just need to be smart about our spending. I will fight for you in Topeka. I never voted for tax increases. I know opponents have accused me of that in the past for the sales tax and the income tax. I did not support those efforts, and I will not support those efforts again. We are working very hard to make ends meet, and the state must do the same.
Thank you. Mr. Bruner, same question, 1 minute. Why you do or why you do not support Medicaid expansion?
36 states, red states and blue states, have now expanded Medicaid, and none of them have gone back. The Alliance for a Healthy Kansas estimates that Franklin County's impact would be 486 residents gain coverage, 84 new jobs, $3.25 million in additional economic impact. And the people that gain insurance aren't just people that get Medicaid. They're people that, because of us accepting the 90% federal aid, would be eligible for insurance on the exchanges. So it's making them eligible for insurance, not necessarily just Medicaid. And it also, and you may not worry as much about it maybe here in Franklin County, but probably is something about. But we worry a lot about keeping our hospitals going. We lost a hospital in Fort Scott. And I know people who have left our part of this district and actually moved up here where they're closer to the Kansas City medical facilities. So.
Thank you. Mr. Bruner, I'll have you start this next question. And we'll go 2 minutes on this question. So you both touched on the budget and some different ideas, but when you think about how you would balance the state budget and ideas you have to either find new forms of revenue, new sources of revenue, or what are some things that you could see as possible cuts to help make sure our state budget is balanced?
Well, if we don't end up with a tremendous shortfall, if we can get some government assistance, federal government assistance, I think that we'll probably be okay. I think there is a real possibility that if we do not get some assistance and we do have a huge revenue shortfall, we will be in a world of hurt. And it will probably be necessary to put off some of the nice things that we would like to do. And it might be necessary. I mean, this is just pure honesty. I don't like to say it, but admit it, I feel it. But we may have to have some combination of tax increases and cuts. And don't think that cutting spending is all that free of a deal. Most state spending is either salaries, and those people then take that money and they spend them in the private sector businesses in the community, or it's goods and services the state government buys from the private sector. So you can't quite separate that. And if we did have to do any tax increases, I would very, very much want them to be as low as possible, obviously, and structured in a way that protects those with middle and low incomes as much as possible. I certainly don't want to go in the direction of higher and higher sales taxes like we had during the previous administration. In fact, I would like to see the sales taxes come down, particularly on food, ideally eliminated. So this is a situation that's going to require hard bargaining and facing realities if worse comes to worse.
Thank you. Ms. Tyson, same question.
Thank you. We do have to dig in on the budget. As I said in 2009, they did do it. I wasn't there in the legislature at that time, but there are ways that we can look for inefficiencies. We did pass legislation a couple years ago that would have changed and I'll bring my opponent up to speed with the budget process in the state. Right now, every department and agency is supposed to tell you what the program is, who funds it, and why it exists, so that legislators can start finding duplicate programs and start creating efficiencies in the system. You know, there are so many ways that we could dig in as legislators and be more efficient and promote that, especially in IT and other ways that we're not taking advantage of in our state. I know that the time is ripe, that people are looking for new ideas, and this is a time when we need innovation. I will definitely bring that type of experience to this seat as I have in the past. It's not a time to complain about the problem. We all see the problem. What we need are solutions. And I say that there are so many things that we can do. We can expand broadband in the state. And when we do, we promote the economy. We allow people to telecommute from their home. We create technical jobs where they can stay in our rural, small communities. One of the things that hurt our communities more than anything was when we used to have farmers on every acre and families on every 80 acres. We don't have that anymore. So we need to bring those people back, our family, our friends, back to the rural communities in Kansas and make this the great place that it is to live for all of us.
Okay, thank you. We'll go a minute and a half each on this next question. And obviously, COVID-19 has been a major issue for all of us this year and in our lives. And Ms. Tyson, I'll have you go first on this question. What is your position on the COVID-19 safety procedures and or preventions that we currently have in place as it pertains to school and getting our kids back into school?
The current situation, I feel like it's government overreach. We look at states that didn't shut down, that handled the COVID. South Dakota is a prime example, that handled the situation different than Kansas. Allowed individuals, we gave them the information as fact, and then they can act and respect others with that information. We had a situation just south of us, one of the school districts. One student had COVID. 109 students were quarantined as a result. It was such a burden on the parents, the schools, this in school, out of school, online. It's burden for the teachers, for the students. We've got to take a close look at this, and not just, the bad thing is the experts are feeding us data that may or may not be accurate. The Department of KDHE has been proven a couple of times to be showing the data in such a manner that it suits their story. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to present the facts and let people make the decisions for themselves. And that's what we are a country, a land of the free. You know, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It's never been us against them. We are the government. I'm you guys, I'm your neighbor. I just took an active stance to try to solve problems, and I ask that you join me in this. That we need to take ownership and responsibility for ourselves.
Thank you. And Mr. Bruner, same question. Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, freedom and responsibility have always gone together, and philosophers of freedom have also always pointed out that your freedom does have certain limits when it harms others, and this is a real serious issue. This is not a hoax. It is a real disease. I have family members who have suffered from it. I haven't had any personal friends who have died, but I know people who have. This is terrible. And there are some things that we really do need to do. When we're close to other people, we do need to protect them from our respiratory droplets because the virus is attached to them sometimes. I have allergies, and sometimes I have symptoms that I could very easily be symptomatic of COVID and not realize it. We have to maintain a little more distance than we would like to. Wash our hands. We had a fellow got up at a county commission meeting in Allen County bragging about how he doesn't wash his hands. No, this is real. This is science. You do not, it is never a good idea to go to war with science. Viruses don't understand county lines and political ideology. And so I know it's hard. It's not quite as tough as my parents' and grandparents' generation had to go through in World War II. It certainly isn't what the folks in London had to go through during the Blitz. But yes, I am pro-science on the issue of COVID.
Mr. Bruner, I'll let you keep the mic, and we'll go a minute and a half each. And just, why don't we close out by just telling our voters why we should elect you for your position this year.
Well, I guess because I will listen. I will bring a different perspective. I am very serious about wanting to bring more civility, more cooperation to the public process. But also, I will be honest about how difficult it is to do things like cut budgets. And yeah, as much as I support public schools, if I have to, I will cut funding for education if it's absolutely necessary. But I'm going to, and I'm proud to have the endorsement of KNEA, and I've worked for many years with the support of teachers. But we have to face realities, and I understand that. And I'll be honest about that. And I will be available to any of the constituents in Senate District 12. I'm just an old retired guy. I don't have anything better to do than visit with you guys. And the one thing I regret most about this whole campaign has been, I just have felt it's not really appropriate to go out and do a lot of the door knocking and the personal stuff. And to me, people don't want to come out. When I deliver campaign signs, people want to sign. I'd go up to a door and there'd be a sign that says, please wear a mask. We have a patient in here who's taking chemotherapy, or someone with COPD. I know school teachers, young school teachers that don't want to take their children to see their grandparents because they're concerned about this. And so I do miss the opportunity to visit with you during the campaign, but I want you to know virtually you'll always be accessible.
Well, I want to thank you guys again for coming out. We were driving here, and my husband, I said it's 50 degrees. He says, no, Karen, it's 48 degrees. So this is the first candidate forum we've had outside like this, so it's interesting. I appreciate you guys putting together all the work. You know, I ask for your support in this election. You guys know me, you know that you can count on me. You know that I'm there for you, for constituent services. You can count on me to fight for limited government, economic development, individual freedom, and traditional values. You can count on me to stand for common sense. You can count on me to find solutions to the problems facing our great state. I can't tell you, I do enjoy working in the legislature. I do people. I'm not a fan of the politics or the misleading information. I work diligently and I work with both sides. I don't care if the idea comes from a Democrat or Republican and independent. It doesn't matter. If it's a good idea, it's going to get the time and the consideration that it deserves. I will work very hard to represent you in the 12th district, and I ask for your vote and your support. Thank you.
Thank you both for joining us this evening. I really appreciate you showing up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruner.
Okay, so Roger Sims is here this evening with us. And Roger, if you want to come on up. His opponent is not here this evening, so Generally, when we have an unopposed candidate, we give you 2 minutes to make a statement and tell us why we should vote for you, but I'm going to give you 4 this evening.
I'm really surprised Mr. Sample isn't here tonight. I'm kind of looking forward to it. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Roger Sims. I'm running for the 5th District House of Representatives seat. I'm from Parker, Kansas. My background is varied. I've done some program development for not-for-profits. I've also been a reporter for several of the newspapers for Miami County. More recently, I was a teacher, taught at Prairie View High School in Lacine, and spent 6 years teaching at West Franklin High School in Pomona. And so I know quite a few residents of Franklin County. However, none of them in my district, not so much, because it's on the other side of the county. Anyway, 5th District is almost all of Anderson County, a couple townships in Lynn County, and Franklin County. It basically covers Richmond, Princeton, Lane, Rantoul, and Wellsville. So I also spent, in terms of elected experience, I spent 20 years on the Prairie View School Board, and really enjoyed that. Worked with state budgets, saw where there was a lot of problems. Always saw where it seemed to be the education budgets were approved the very last thing, and kept teachers and administration and staff and boards wondering about what was going to happen with education. We've also seen some cuts that have been very came mid-year and were very, very harmful to a lot of school districts, like a small 2A district getting a $250,000 cut in January was very difficult. One of the reasons I'm running, I think, that is part of the some of the issues that I see with the legislature. I know we've just talked about Medicaid expansion, and we've heard why one version of why that's not a good idea. However, on the other hand, I very much support Medicaid expansion, because we've seen in other states how it's worked, how the money flowing back into the communities has essentially created jobs, which creates a tax base. Anytime you spend, it's one of the rules of breaking a recession is when governments spend money, the money begins flowing again, the taxes come in. We saw that the opposite of that when Governor Brownback, who is a neighbor of both Ms. Tyson and myself, was born there. We saw that when he cut money to the schools, teachers were laid off, support staff was laid off, and so that really hurt the communities. So I think that in terms of expanding Medicaid, I think it's a win-win, and it's been proven in several other states. And the whole idea that it'll go too deep into our budget is utter nonsense. I support schools. I understand that part of the problem with schools, we've seen we have a lot of different tactics to dealing with this COVID crisis. And I had a teacher I was talking to the other day said, we've had parents who are against the kids wearing masks in school, but those kids want to be in school, and so they wear their masks and they're careful. They don't want to be in quarantine. So I think that administrations are dealing with this any way they can. I fully support the using masks in school. I also, if parents are uncomfortable and want to do a hybrid or online education, I think that works too. One of the problems we're going to see with schools this year, and maybe in the next couple of years, is because a lot of students are either pulling out of schools and going to different districts, or pulling out and doing homeschooling, is we're going to see the numbers of students in each district probably drop. And of course, that's going to, if that happens over a number of years, that's going to impact state school district budgets negatively, and so we don't want that to happen. I think the other thing that we also need to work on is the tax structure. The the solution to the brown back cuts on income tax was to, and still provide some funding for schools, was to increase the sales tax. So right now in some of the communities across Kansas, we have one of the highest sales tax on food in the nation. We need to cut the sales tax on food, which that sales tax on food impacts low income and middle income families more than other taxpayers. Of course, we're going to have to make that up. Now, one of the problems that I see, obviously, we have a lot of we have no reserve. We basically, because of the brown back cuts, we were left with no reserve. It's one of the problems with the unemployment system right now is an antiquated computer system that needed to be replaced and wasn't replaced, and so we had a complete meltdown when we started having all of these when the COVID hit and all of the layoffs. So it's obviously going to be a very tough time. What are you going to do when you don't have money, but you have all these people filing for unemployment? Hopefully, the federal government will come through and help us out, but I think we are going to be hard pressed to meet budget. I don't think looking for inefficiencies. We'll see, but I think that I don't see anything in the offing that would show that we're going to be able to cut taxes very much, quite frankly, because we're in a dire situation, I think, right now. I thank you again for the opportunity to speak for my 4 minutes. Did I take 4 minutes? And I want to tell you that obviously we have some of the toughest voters in Franklin County, because they're willing to sit out here in the cold and sometimes drizzle and listen to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here this evening. Okay, Karen Rugg and Blaine Finch, if you come on up. Okay, while they're making their way up, just a reminder that if you do have questions to submit, raise your hand. We'll get paper and pen to you, and they'll get the questions back up to the table for us. Okay, well, thank you both for being here this evening. We're going to start with a minute and a half each, just an introduction and why you're running for office. Okay, if I was going to give you the option, so if you want to defer. Okay, Mr. Finch, go ahead.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for having this forum. I don't think this is what they mean by Chamber of Commerce weather, John. But for the 7 of you who are here, thank you. I think half of you have already voted, and the other half probably already made up your minds. But if you haven't, my name is Blaine Finch. I am the current state representative for the 59th District. In Franklin County, I'm proud to serve this area. This district includes Ottawa, Western Franklin County, and 3 townships over in Osage County, the city of Linden and the city of Vassar. So it is a great district. It's a place that I'm proud to call home. I've been in the legislature for a few years now, and in my time there, I've been happy to champion a lot of the things that our district cares about, to be an advocate for fairer and lower taxes, to support transparency in property taxes, to support criminal justice reform that is smart on crime, to support changes to our laws that are requested by our men and women in law enforcement, to make sure that they have the tools they need to effectively solve crime and stop crime, as well as being an advocate for help our young people to be educated both in public schools and afterwards in our post-secondary institutions. So it's been an honor and privilege for me to serve this area, the people of this district, my neighbors and friends, and their families, and I appreciate it, and I look forward hopefully to the chance to serve you again if re-elected on November 3rd. Thank you everyone who came out tonight. Look forward to taking your questions and getting you some answers.
I hope my teeth don't chatter too much because I am cold. I don't know about everybody else. My name is Karen Rugg, and I am running as the Democratic candidate for the 59th District of the Kansas House. A little background, if you don't know me, I was born a military dependent. My dad retired when I was 15, and he retired to Garnett, where I graduated from high school. I am a KU grad, Rock Chalk, political science and history, and I am a daughter, a sister, a wife, a mother, and a nana. So I have a lot of fun things that I could be doing instead of this. But I am running because there is a theme that we hear too often from our incumbent legislators, and that theme is we can't do that. We're going to have to cut. We don't have the money for that. And I'm going to argue we do. We're a whole lot better than that. Let me ask you a question. Do y'all know who Koch Industries is? Koch Industries is headquartered in Wichita, Kansas. Before the Koch brothers became the Koch brother, they had a combined wealth of $110 billion. The tax cut they got from the state was massive. The tax cut they got from the federal government was between $1 and $1.4 billion. I'm going to argue if we tax the industries that benefited from our infrastructure, from our education, and our working pool, this state would not be in the shape it's in right now. So that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Mrs. Rugg, I'll let you keep the mic on this first question. And I know this is repetitive to our previous candidates, but I think it's a good place for us to start. What do you believe are the biggest priorities for Kansas if you were elected going into 2021? How about a minute and a half?
Minute and a half. Healthcare is at the top of everything. Failure to expand Medicaid has not just been a failure for those who need Medicaid, it is a complete failure to the entire healthcare system. Medicaid falls under the umbrella of the Affordable Care Act, and if we would implement the Affordable Care Act in this state, it would bring in $7.3 billion over the next decade. It would provide a state marketplace for a healthcare exchange, which means that people like me who depend on the marketplace for their healthcare insurance won't have two choices. There are only ever two choices, and they are all outrageously priced, which means what I don't pay, the federal government pays. And I would argue if we would set up an exchange, have competitive rates, not only does the federal government end up paying less for my health care, but I actually have choice and a little bit of competition. This stabilizes healthcare across the state. It isn't just those who would benefit directly from the Medicaid expansion. It is healthcare in Kansas in general that benefits. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. I think the biggest priority, the biggest challenge our state faces first is the safety of our citizens. We've got to keep people safe. That's the foundational thing that government does, right? It ensures the safety of its citizens. The second thing that's going to be most important is to restore our economy and jobs across our state. We have many businesses that are hurting right now. If you look at the hospitality sector, if you look at restaurants across our state, they are hurting. We've had closures right here in Ottawa because those businesses can't sustain. So getting our economy back on track as safely and quickly as possible is the second big challenge. Getting jobs restored is a big challenge for our state. I think the other one is the state coffers. How do we fund the necessary government services that our citizens use? The biggest of those are schools, K through 12 schools. We've got to get kids back in school consistently and safely, but we've got to make sure. We went from $1.1 billion in surplus to $300 million in deficit overnight because of this pandemic. So there is not some extra well of money out there that we can turn to. The state had been doing fairly good at being responsible and having a rainy day fund. Well, it has been raining. And so that will be the third big challenge for our state is how do we fund those necessary services like K-12 education, our Regents institutions, public safety, like our highway patrol, in the face of a state budget decimated by this pandemic. So those are the three things I think that we'll be facing in the upcoming year.
Mr. Finch, if you want to keep the mic. And let's continue on that theme there with COVID-19 and you know what we've seen happen here in the state of Kansas, across the country as well, as a lot of jobs lost and not replaced, or people are not going back to work yet. So to both of you, and we'll go a minute each on this. What do you feel is the position that Kansas legislation can do to help recover in terms of both help for small businesses and for individual families?
Sure. So we had two measures that were vetoed last year that I think are absolutely critical to this. One would have created a $60 million low-interest loan pool using the state's idle funds that could have been loaned out by our banks and credit unions to needy businesses across the state to help them get through this tough time. Governor vetoed that bill. Second bill that she vetoed was the Kansas Promise Act that would have said to every Kansas high school graduate, if you're willing to commit to go into a high-need industry in this state where we need workers, and you're willing to remain in Kansas for 2 years after graduation, we will pay for you to go to community college or tech or trade school in this state. And if you stay here, you don't have to pay it back. If you go to a 4-year institution in Kansas, transfer to a Regents institution, you don't have to pay it back. That is what we need in Kansas to create jobs, is to build our workforce, to find out what industry needs by way of workers, and make sure that we are training people to fill those roles. That's how we keep the industry we have. That's how we attract new industry to our state. And the governor vetoed that bill as well. So I'm going to go back. If I'm reelected, I'm going to try to get both of those measures passed again so that we can rebuild our economy and rebuild our workforce.
So, you know, we've had a lot of job losses and not so much recovery because of COVID-19, you know, not just here in Kansas, but across the country. So, from the Kansas legislative position, what could we be doing for Kansas residents, for Franklin County residents, both in terms of helping our small businesses and individuals?
Well, I know that everyone has been inconvenienced by what has happened with this pandemic. But that doesn't change the fact that there are things that we need to do that we're not doing. Nobody wants to wear a mask. I can tell you that. If you wear lipstick, it's on the inside of it. You can't see people when they smile. For my husband who can't hear, it makes conversation impossible. But we have a mindset of, you're not the boss of me. And I am not going to wear that mask because it's my right as an American and it's my right as a Kansan. And I'm going to argue that public health emergencies take precedence over these civil rights that people think are being infringed upon. If the legislature would support the governor and we had a uniform policy on masks, that would be a great start. But we don't even get that. You can walk in any store that has a sign posted saying, please wear a mask inside, and you can find any number of people who don't. Until we get this under control, it's going to be hard to build anything economically, because we have to have people who are willing to get out. We have to have people who are willing to spend their money. And I have made conscious decisions personally about where I have shopped in town based upon the enforcement of the mask policy. We need to just dig in, tough it out, and be Americans. We can do this.
Mrs. Rugg, I'll let you keep the mic, and we'll go a minute and a half on this next question as well. So, you know, we've talked a lot about different issues and maybe some different results that could be achieved if elected to this seat. What would, you know, as voters, as you would represent us in your districts, you know, we want to see those results, right, for these different issues we're talking about. So we're in a very polarizing time right now. Things get stretched to the extreme. So what would be your plan if elected to be able to work with people that may not always agree with you, or be able to reach across the aisle to get things done?
Well, I think one really big benefit to voting for me is I have no interest in a political career. As I told you, I'm a nana. I got grandkids. I would rather spend time with my grandkids. So being somebody who doesn't have a political agenda makes it easier for me to say the things that need to be said. My mouth has gotten so dry up here. Say the things that need to be said and do the things that need to be done without having to worry about donors and whether I'm going to get donations from them for the next election cycle. All of those things play into your effectiveness as a legislator. If you are only there to be a legislator and do what needs to be done for 2 years, you're free to take the actions that need to be taken. I can't stress that enough. I don't want to be a career politician. I just want to make things better.
I think that most of you here know me, and many of you who will watch this on Facebook Live know me, and you know that I pride myself on being very approachable. I pride myself on being somebody who likes to work with people to get things done. Nothing great ever gets done by anyone individually. It takes people working together as a team. It takes people pitching in to make things better. We stand here in Legacy Square, which is a testament to the fundraising and the gift giving by people all across this community, and it's a symbol of what can happen when we come together. In my time in Topeka, I've worked with people of all ideological stripes. I've worked with both parties, and probably more challenging, I've worked with senators. Sorry, Senator Tyson, but that's probably it's hard to work with in Topeka, is across the rotunda. And I've worked with all of those groups. I've worked with governors who are Republican and governors who are Democrat on policies that support our constitutional freedoms and that are appropriate. When we disagree, I disagree civilly. I disagree with kindness, but I disagree stridently. I will defend my position to the last if I think it's in the best interest of the people of this district. I will not sell them out. I will not give up if I believe in what we're fighting for. So my answer how I'm going to work with people who disagree with me is that I already do. And I think the proof is in the pudding. I work with people of all different stripes, all different positions, and I think that we are all children of God, and I think we are all fearfully and wonderfully made, and I think every one of us deserves respect and civility and kindness in our interactions, and I try to do that to the best of my ability every time that I interact with someone.
Thank you, Mr. Finch. We're going into district now with the lights going on, so how about if I'm going to give each candidate 2 minutes to kind of summarize why you would appreciate our vote for you in this election. Do you want to go first this time, Mrs. Rupp?
Well, I want to start by thanking my opponent for being here tonight. I think it's important that we give everyone an opportunity to hear us on the issues and make a decision accordingly. I want to thank everybody who's braving the weather tonight to be out here. I'm asking your vote because I think I have a demonstrated track record of putting this district and its people first. I try always to determine what it is that our district wants and needs when a policy issue comes before me, and I try to apply my best judgment to coming up with the right answer for which way to vote on an issue. There's no maybe button on that desk. It's a green light or it's a red light. And sometimes those are tough votes to take. There's people that are friends on both sides and they're bound to be upset with you no matter what position you take. But I think I've done a good job of trying to listen and be informed on the issues and try to make the right decision, even when it's not easy to do. I took a stand earlier this year on something the governor wanted that was a violation of our constitutional rights. And I had many people in our community who were upset with me about that, but it was the right thing to do. It wasn't about re-election, it wasn't about polling, it wasn't about contributions, it was about what is the right thing to do for the oath that I took to support and defend the Constitution of the state of Kansas and the Constitution of the United States. So if you want someone who will always be committed to trying to do that for you, who will listen to you when you call, when you want to take a meeting, and I've met with my opponent before right over here at this coffee shop, and we've talked about issues just I think it was last year maybe, or a year and a half ago. That's me. I'll hear you out. Even when we disagree, I'll tell you why I voted the way I voted. And there's a lot of people that go to Topeka or go to Washington and they'll never explain to you why they cast the vote that they cast. And it's because sometimes they don't have a good reason for doing so. I always try to make sure that I have a good reason for doing so and that I'm able to communicate it to you succinctly and in a way that's clear. So if that's what you want in a representative, then I'm going to ask for your vote because that's who I am and that's what I try to provide. I love this community. I'm going to live here after I'm no longer in public service, and I want it to be the best possible community it can be. So if that's what you want representing you in Topeka, then I'm your guy, and I'd appreciate your vote on November 3rd, or if you're voting early, I'll take it before then. For coming out tonight. Thank you, Ryan, for moderating this.
Well, I'm going to have to beg to differ a little bit with my opponent because that's part of why I'm running He's talking to you about working across the aisle and compromising, but he spent several votes last session voting against the governor for things like reorganization of departments under her. I didn't see a whole lot of votes that were family friendly or family oriented. I saw votes against credits for child care, against helping families adopt children out of our foster care system, against health care, against women's reproductive rights. All of those things influenced my decision to run because I don't think Kansas is a can't-do-it state. I think Kansas is a can-do state. And I think we need more people who are willing to say, find a way to do that rather than, nope, it's not going to happen. So I will admit that he has been very receptive whenever I've needed to talk to him about anything. But by the same token, in 7 years, I've not received any kind of announcements, anything about what he is actually doing in the legislature. So I'm going to challenge the transparency statement just a little because those things matter. What happens in Topeka influences and impacts our lives, so we need to know. Again, I'm not planning to make a career of this. I just want to get in, see what I can do to make things better, be a representative for everyone who needs one, and look for other options. Something that nobody's talked about, tax-wise. We do have other options for taxes. I think it's time that we started considering the legalization of medicinal marijuana. I think people would be surprised at how many dollars are going to Colorado now. And that's my time. So if you haven't voted yet, please consider voting for me. Thanks.
Thank you both for being here this evening. We appreciate it. Jeff Richards, are you still here? I am. Okay. So Jeff is running unopposed for sheriff this election process, but I wanted to give him 2 minutes this evening to talk about why you want to represent us.
Okay. Well, good evening. I have had the honor of Franklin County Sheriff for the past about 7 years, and I am in the election. Fortunately, I'm unopposed. There's a lot less stress to run this way than there is the way that some of the others are here are running. So I appreciate that. Just real quick, why I believe that I'm working to continue to earn your continued support is that I took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the state of Kansas and the United States. And I take that very, very seriously. And I've heard throughout this entire process that our rights are not absolute. I disagree with that very strongly. Our rights are absolute. Our rights come from God, and government is established to protect those rights. Not absolute is the willingness of men and women in office to actually defend our rights. I will continue to defend the rights of all of our people. That's what I took the oath of office to do. And I also, as far as serving as sheriff, it's not just running an office here in Franklin County. I also am able to represent and serve at the state level on a human trafficking advisory board. I'm on the sexual assault response committee as well. And then I've just been reappointed to the National Sheriff's Committee for Border Security and Homeland Security. And you might think that having a sheriff from Kansas that would serve on a Border Security Committee makes no sense, but the drugs that are coming into our community are coming in from cartels in Mexico. And so it is important that our voice is also heard down there, because I believe that border security is also community security for us. And so I was appointed to that, and I'm willing to step up and take that fight there to protect the citizens here in Franklin County. So I appreciate the time, Ryan, and appreciate everybody's vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate you being here. Okay. Roy Dunn. Roy's still here? Is Brian here? Okay. So Roy, same thing. I'll give you 2 minutes to talk about what you're going to do for Franklin County as our commissioner.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks to all the sponsors of this night. I know it's cold, and I think a lot of us want to get home here pretty soon. So we're going to skip my whole biography, I think. I don't think that's necessary tonight. I am a long-time Franklin County person. I graduated from high school here and a bachelor's degree from Ottawa University. I had 3 goals in mind while I was running for re-election. When I filed for re-election back in January, I wanted to finish taking care of the 2019 floods that we had here. We had over 2,000 work orders of ditches, roads, bridges, and all that to fix. And we're now just getting around to maybe fulfilling that. And secondly, I would like to get high-speed internet throughout the rural areas of Franklin County. And also, I'd like to see a good tenant in Proximity Park. The Proximity Park is a good opportunity for all of Franklin County, and a place for people to go to get a good job. And that's what we're trying to do with the city of Ottawa, is get good people in there. Anyway, COVID-19 hit, and Franklin County was under a lot of mandates from the governor. The Attorney General came out right away and said those mandates were unconstitutional. But we're still fighting COVID-19 still today, and that's kind of the number one priority for Franklin County right now, is try to get the COVID-19 behind us, because it is interfering with all of our lives. But as a Franklin County Commissioner, I believe an individual chose too on how to proceed with COVID-19. There's only 3 things I really like, is social distancing and wearing masks, and where people like to enforce it, like in stores or restaurants and that sort of thing. And I think those restrictions are about all that I think is, personally, I think is necessary right now. We are seeing a little upturn in COVID-19, just like a lot of counties in Franklin County, or in the state of Kansas, but it's hit every county in the state, and we're all dealing with it right now. I was hoping that my opponent would be here tonight so I could take some good, hard questions, but ask me some questions, or anybody else wants to ask some questions, feel free.
98 times 72. That's a pretty tough question.
Well, that's why I have this thing right here. I'll take care of that, those little problems. As far as where I stand on several things in Franklin County, I think I've been pretty consistent to try to hold our property tax mill levy flat. Also, like I said, I promote, internet, high-speed internet, which is very important right now with the way our school systems are operating. It's pretty tough to be in certain parts of our county and they can't even get internet at all. So that's a good initiative, and I think it's a state initiative also.
You know, that was one of the questions I had prepared, is some of the priorities that you see if elected to the commission. Let me ask you this question. If you were reelected, what's one thing that you'd like to see completed in 2021 as a commissioner?
Well, I'd like to get over the COVID-19, but I think getting a good tenant in Proximity Park would be a real good asset for the county. And I also like what Dr. Cobb is doing as a superintendent, teaming up with superintendents from all over this area to have a workforce development initiative to try to for the kids that don't go to college, have an opportunity for them to get trained in skills and other areas that we all need, like plumbers and electricians and all those kind of skills. So I think that's a great initiative by our 290 superintendent.
Well, Roy, appreciate you being here this evening and braving the cold with us all. Is Rod Harris here? Did he show up? Okay. So,
Anyway, thank you, Ryan. I just wanted to say one of my priorities is I'll always vote no on these people that come into our county and start a business and they want to be grandfathered in at a later date. This comes up about every year. Somebody sneaks into our county, starts a business, then they get caught, and they come in and they want to be grandfathered in that business, and I'll be consistent no on those folks to do that, no matter how great whatever their initiative is. It's still a no for me. Do the right thing, and that's been my philosophy all the time I've been on the board. I know our early voting's already started, mail-in voting's already started, and I just appreciate your vote on November 3rd, and I think it's about time to go home then, right?
I think you're right. So, Roy, thank you
Thank you,
again for being
everybody.
here. And as Mr. Dunn just reminded us, advanced voting did begin yesterday. So, and general election voting is November 3rd, so please get out and vote. If there's any candidate material left over this evening, please take it with you. If you don't take it with you, it's going to end up in one of these brand new dumpsters that we have out here at Legacy Square. Want to say thank you again to our sponsors, which was Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce and the Legislative Action Committee, Franklin County Farm Bureau Association, and AT&T. And thank you to Rylan for getting this streamed on Facebook. Thank you, Richard, for being our timer, and Sherry and Louie is over here. Thank you for running questions, and appreciate you all coming out and being with us this evening. Have a good night.